Welcome, dearly beloved chosen ones. The universe remembers everything. It watches patiently, then acts with breathtaking precision. Forget the cliché of karma being a cold dish. This is karma amplified, adorned with undeniable proof, arriving at their doorstep with a resounding, "Remember me." Prepare to witness cosmic retribution so profound it doesn't merely humble, it reshapes their very essence. This is the kind of reversal that elicits whispers. They must have truly crossed the wrong person. A harsh reality many overlook, backed by psychological insights. Those who actively undermine others often exist in a bubble of invincibility until the very chaos they unleashed obliterates their own carefully constructed world. And when it does, it's not just their reputation that suffers. It's the shattering of their illusion of control. Understand this: when someone disrupts the tranquility of a chosen one, when they belittle what they cannot comprehend, when they weaponize falsehoods to assassinate a soul, the universe doesn't simply retaliate, it educates. And the tuition, everything they falsely believed was untouchable. Brace yourselves, because what unfolds is not merely ironic, but akin to spiritual surgery. This karma is not accidental. It's a divinely orchestrated response wrapped in poetic justice. And be warned, the laughter has ceased. Let's delve into it. 1. They mocked the pain you shielded. Now they are publicly exposed to the very vulnerabilities they derided. They treated your pain as a source of amusement, ridiculing the very experiences that almost extinguished your spirit. Your tears became fodder for jokes, your struggles transformed into personality defects, and your suffering became a shared pastime. Never did they bother to inquire about your quietude, your withdrawal, or the dimming of your inner light. They presumptuously assumed your brokenness rendered you inferior, weak, deserving of their scorn. Unbeknownst to them, your silence was not a sign of frailty, but sacred space. You were mourning, rebuilding, surviving ordeals they could not endure for even a day, let alone a lifetime. And now life has delivered a chilling turn. It has burdened them with the very pain they trivialized. But this time there is no cheering audience, no circle of supportive laughter, no applause for their mockery. The identical emotional torment you once faced, be it heartbreak, betrayal, illness, abandonment, loss, or mental anguish, has manifested in their lives, and the humor has vanished. Suddenly, their carefully constructed reality is collapsing. The facade is crumbling. They are unraveling in real time before the eyes of others. Their smiles appear strained, their confidence shattered, and their very presence haunted. Because karma didn't just revisit, it struck with force and in public view. Now they grasp the depths of your experience, but their understanding arrives too late. No apology can ever erase the way they casually dragged your name through conversations. "No, I was just joking," can undo the pleasure they derived from your suffering. What they perceived as weakness was in truth profound depth, and their perceived strength was nothing more than borrowed arrogance. Now they weep the tears they once scoffed at, burdened by the same weight they mocked you for carrying. And suddenly your narrative is no longer pathetic, but prophetic. Witnesses observe, and those who once joined in their laughter now whisper, they are reaping precisely what they sowed. That is the unsettling truth about karma. It strikes not where you are vulnerable, but where you feel most secure. And this time it did not come to gently teach, but to thoroughly humiliate. They didn't simply learn a lesson, they are living inside one. 2. Their curse ricocheted with such velocity they suspected you of retaliation. So convinced were they of your downfall that when misfortune began to plague them, their first instinct was not introspection but accusation. They could not fathom how swiftly their lives deteriorated after their actions towards you. Finances dwindled, relationships shattered, tranquility vanished, and everything seemed to go awry. A dark cloud seemed to follow them relentlessly. And incredibly, they actually believed you were responsible. Paranoia gripped them and they whispered amongst themselves, suspecting you of some form of spiritual intervention. Perhaps you had retaliated, or perhaps you possessed more power than they realized. But here is the revelation: they were the architects of their own destruction. You remained passive. You did not seek retribution. You did not perform rituals or incantations. You simply survived with integrity while they wallowed in wickedness. Their malevolence, their obsessive focus, their fuel of jealousy and ego coalesced into a self-inflicted curse. They projected such toxic energy that it could not reach you and instead returned to its origin. And when it did not politely knock, but tore through their existence like a spiritual wildfire. That was the unexpected consequence. They underestimated the swiftness, the inevitability of karma. But their malevolent intent rebounded so quickly because they targeted someone protected. Their abrupt reversal of fortune terrified them, shaking them to their core. They genuinely believed you were orchestrating it all. But that is how resounding the consequences became. They disregarded the fact that ill intentions do not vanish simply because they are concealed. Energy is indifferent to deception. It responds to the underlying truth. The irony is exquisite. They sought control but now plead for answers, for clarity, for peace. Once they sought to steal from you, they dismiss spiritual laws during their plotting, but now frantically search for protective incantations. They burn sage, desperate for understanding. They are terrified because something is clearly amiss, and they know deep within that it began when they targeted you, not because you are a sorceress or a warrior, but because you were innocent. And when innocence is attacked, karma doesn't merely respond, it erupts. 3. They fancied themselves as puppet masters. Now they find themselves trapped within their own creation. They believed they were the unseen masterminds manipulating others like chess pieces. They feigned friendship while spreading insidious lies. They gathered allies, distorted narratives, and moved with calculated precision, believing themselves too cunning, too connected, too charming to be discovered. Their ambition extended beyond simply causing your downfall. They sought to control its very orchestration, who would turn against you when it would occur, and its ultimate extent. Every action was deliberate, as if they were scripting your demise. But they overlooked a fundamental truth: those who dig traps for others often find themselves dwelling within one. The very web they designed to ensnare you is now constricting them. The lies they fabricated are rebounding. The individuals they manipulated are awakening, sharing accounts and recognizing patterns. One by one, the pawns are abandoning the board, realizing their exploitation. And now the so-called puppet master is in a state of panic as the narrative unravels a narrative they can no longer control. Questions are being asked that they cannot answer. The lies are accumulating and the web is collapsing upon them. There is no sensation more agonizing than realizing you are imprisoned within the very game you created. That is their current predicament. They sought to portray you as unstable, disloyal, or dangerous, but all they accomplished was exposing their own insecurity, control, and manipulative tendencies. Their thirst for power and recognition has become their greatest vulnerability. They can no longer maintain the facade. They are gripped by paranoia, constantly looking over their shoulders, fearing exposure. That very fear is the same fear they attempted to instill in your life. They were never superior to life itself. They were merely temporarily evading consequences. But karma is indifferent to timing. It is concerned with alignment, and they deviated from alignment the moment they embraced deceit. Now they are trapped within a reality of their own making, surrounded by superficial alliances and individuals who harbor secret distrust. It is the full circle they never anticipated. The web they wove was never intended to catch you. It was always destined to become their own spiritual snare, and now they are ensnared with no escape. 4. They prayed for your downfall. Ultimately, God answered their prayers for themselves. Their prayers for your demise were relentless, becoming an obsessive ritual. Every conversation, every thought, every interaction dripped with bitterness. They were not simply upset with you, they were consumed, fixated. They began to wish failure upon you with the same fervor that others wish for sunshine. And frighteningly, they genuinely believed their prayers were justified. They convinced themselves that your progress was a threat, your peace undeserved, and your blessings rightfully theirs. Therefore, their intentions went beyond mere hoping for your downfall. They prayed for it repeatedly, relentlessly. But the universe does not respond to names, it responds to energy, to intent. A corrupt heart cannot be masked with religious language and expect divine favor. Their prayers did not originate from a place of healing, but from a place of malice. And as a result, they did not align with your downfall, but with their own destruction. Unwittingly, each time they uttered negativity over your life, they were planting seeds within their own soil. Each time they whispered, "I hope they lose everything," the universe acknowledged, noted. You simply deflected that energy. Now everything they wished upon you is manifesting within their world. Confusion, setbacks, isolation, delay, loss. However, it is not punishment but reflection. Their prayers did not move God. Their energy shaped the outcome. Because when you pray against someone innocent who maintains purity of heart and integrity of action, the only outcome is the activation of a mirror, a spiritual boomerang. And when it returns, it does not knock. It enters as if invited. They look around and attribute their misfortune to bad luck, envious friends, spiritual warfare, anything but themselves. Yet deep down, they know. They know the things they wished on you were dark. They know the prayers they spoke were not true prayers, but curses disguised in religious language. And now they are haunted by the very darkness they unleashed. You had no need to defend yourself. You did not need to retaliate. Their own tongue set the trap and their own energy dug the pit. and now their own life crumbles beneath the weight of what they hoped would destroy you. That is not karma being cruel, that is karma being just. 5. They thought destroying you would elevate them. Instead, it paralyzed their path. They believed that stepping on you would lift them higher. They thought that removing you from the equation through lies, manipulation, or calculated exclusion would afford them more recognition, more space, more opportunity. In their minds, your success was the obstacle, not their own inadequacies. So they planned your demise as if it were a strategy meeting. Silent sabotage, shady alliances, backroom plotting. It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated, a calculated move to clear their path. But what they never anticipated was that removing you would not open doors for them, but would instead lock every single one they attempted to enter. Instead of elevation, they experienced exhaustion. Regardless of their efforts, nothing endures. It all collapses. Clients withdraw. Partnerships dissolve. Money vanishes. Opportunities slip away. And it's not mere chance, it's spiritual consequence. Because destruction cannot be sown with the expectation of a peaceful harvest. They built their dreams upon tainted ground. They tethered their ambition to a curse, and what they considered a clever strategy is now the source of their sleepless nights. The guilt is deafening. The karma is even louder. Their progress is stalled not by opposition, but because their hearts were never pure during their ascent. Their desire was not simply to rise, but to rise by erasing you. That ambition carries a steep price. They may have tasted initial success, recognition, power, but it is all withering now. The applause has faded, the spotlight has dimmed, and deep down they sense that something is amiss. Everything they touch seems to decay. Nothing endures, nothing flows. The truth is attempting to destroy someone who has simply remained in their own lane. Invites a curse upon one's own path. It is a spiritual law. They may not subscribe to such a law, but their lives are serving as evidence of its reality. They were unprepared for the emptiness that would ensue, and now they are trapped, haunted by their actions, tormented by their lack of progress. That sabotage did not elevate them, it exposed them. And what they buried in an attempt to halt your growth has now flourished into the very thing that is suffocating their own. 6. They turned people against you. Now people are ashamed they believed them. They went beyond merely lying about you. They launched a campaign against you. They cast you as the villain in stories you were never present for. In private, they tarnished your name, twisting facts, exaggerating events, and projecting their own guilt onto you. They formed group chats, whispered networks, and engaged in subtle shade and outright smear campaigns. And for a time, it was effective. People's perceptions of you shifted. They stopped calling. They distanced themselves. You felt the change, witnessed the glances, heard the echoes of rumors before entering a room. All you could do was remain silent and watch your reputation be trampled by those who did not truly know you. But time has a way of revealing the truth without haste. Gradually, inconsistencies became apparent. Patterns emerged. The individuals who criticized you for being overbearing began exhibiting toxic behaviors themselves. Those who blamed you for the problem somehow found themselves in conflict with everyone else as well. The lies began to crumble on their own. You had no need to defend yourself. You didn't need to offer explanations. The truth was speaking volumes. And now the very individuals who once sided with your adversaries are starting to feel the weight of their guilt. They are ashamed, realizing they were manipulated as tools in someone else's bitter agenda. Some did not intend to harm you, they simply believed the wrong narrative. But now that the masks have fallen, they view you with different eyes, softer, apologetic. They recognize that you were not the problem. You were the target, and they inadvertently helped paint the target on your back. What is most painful is that they never sought your perspective. They simply assumed. But as the dust settles, your peace speaks for itself. Your consistency speaks. Your growth speaks. And all those who once doubted you observe in silence, ashamed, regretful, and silently hoping you never discover the depth of their hurtful words. You were the authentic one all along, the one they mocked, the one they doubted, the one they turned their backs on. And now that the truth is undeniable, they are suffocating on every lie they helped spread. Because they now realize they bet against the wrong soul. 7. They celebrated when you were homeless, sick, or heartbroken. Now their stability is vanishing. They didn't just witness your suffering, they reveled in it. When you reached your lowest point, they found amusement in your pain. They cracked jokes, shared stories, and spread your circumstances like gossip. Some publicly feigned concern, but privately they laughed. They called it karma. They claimed you got what you deserved. But what they never voiced was their deep-seated envy of your strength. Even in heartbreak, homelessness, or sickness, you maintained a presence, a light that irritated their demons. They felt superior when you were diminished, safer when you were broken. They relished knowing you were in survival mode while they lived comfortably. Your pain provided them with a false sense of power, and the more lavish their lives appeared outwardly, the more they mocked your struggles. They believed they had triumphed, that you were finally defeated, that God had abandoned you. But they were oblivious to the fact that your suffering was not punishment but preparation, a reset. And while they mocked, heaven was rewriting your story. Now the shift has begun. Gradually the ground beneath them is becoming unstable. The money that flowed easily is dwindling. The relationships they were confident in are now strained. Their energy feels depleted. Their peace is shattered, and they are terrified because they cannot comprehend why everything is collapsing. But you do. You recognize the pattern. You know this is not coincidence. It is justice, a divine audit, a correction of energy. They laughed during your trials, now they cry during their exposure. The same eyes that once watched your struggles are now filled with fear. They plead for peace in the same spaces where they sowed chaos. And the universe is not cruel but fair. Their actions have returned not out of vengeance but out of alignment. You did not need to curse them. You did not need to plot. Life performed the calculations independently. And now everything they built upon your downfall is collapsing because it was never blessed. It was fueled by arrogance. And that arrogance has now turned to ashes. 8. They tried to play God in your life. Now they're experiencing silence from the divine. They went beyond simply hurting you. They tried to redefine you. They wanted to rewrite your story with their own pen. They believed that by controlling others' perceptions of you, blocking your opportunities, manipulating your connections, and spreading their distorted version of you, they could reshape your entire path. They sought to assume the role of divine authority in your life, dictating what you deserved, who should love you, and how far you should progress. This was not merely disrespect, it was spiritual trespassing. They distrusted life's natural course, so they attempted to manipulate it themselves. They whispered in places where they had no right to be tampered with what was intended for you, and tried to impede divinely timed events. All of this was done with pride, as if they were the gatekeepers of your future. But the perilous aspect of attempting to play God is that it ultimately leads to a silence that cannot be filled. And that is their current reality, a heavy spiritual silence devoid of answered prayers and complete disconnection. They pray, but nothing moves. They ask, but doors remain closed. They attempt to manifest, but nothing materializes. This is not because they are cursed, but because they overstepped their boundaries. They attempted to alter someone else's calling, and in doing so, forfeited their own alignment. The divine does not share authority with manipulators. It removes its protection from them. The absence they feel, the spiritual barrenness, is not random. It is the consequence of attempting to occupy a throne that is not theirs. Now they are spiritually exiled. What once flowed effortlessly is now laden with friction. They attempt to hear God but are met with silence. And that silence is not a test. It is a response, a message, a consequence. They touched what was sacred and tried to halt what was heavenly. And now they stand outside the gates they once sought to guard. The lesson is severe but genuine. When one attempts to play God in another's life, they forfeit their place in His presence, a loss that no amount of control can remedy. 9. They tapped into dark energy to harm you. Now that energy is consuming them, they crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Their anger towards you was not merely resentment, but obsession. So consumed were they that they sought ways to break you spiritually. When lies failed, when isolation proved insufficient, they turned to darkness. They sought out individuals claiming to possess occult abilities. They paid for spells, readings, and rituals intended to obstruct your path, distort your mind, or harm your body. Some even engaged in these practices themselves, lighting candles, chanting names, writing petitions against your life, and invoking forces they did not fully comprehend. All of it done in secret, believing you would never know. But the nature of spiritual energy is such that it does not await permission to manifest. They were told it would eradicate you, cause you to vanish, teach you a lesson. And for a time it may have appeared to be effective. Perhaps you felt weighed down, experienced strange losses, were unable to explain sudden shifts, attacks, anxieties, or unsettling dreams. But they failed to grasp that your protection extended beyond candles and chants. You were shielded long before they even contemplated their actions. And as a result, the energy they dispatched could not remain with you. It circled, searched, and then returned with intensified force. Now they are sleepless, haunted by shadows, startled by sudden noises, hearing whispers, and experiencing inexplicable breakdowns. It is more than paranoia, it is infestation. Spiritual infestation. Their peace is shattered, their home feels alien, their minds are cluttered, and no amount of sage or crystals can cleanse what is rooted in malice. They failed to understand the rules. Spiritual law is real. One cannot conjure destruction without eventually partaking from the same dish. The energy they tapped into demands payment, and it is now collecting through fear, illness, and mental torment. They open doors they cannot close, and what once gave them a sense of power is now making them feel powerless. This is not your doing. It is their decision reaching its full circle. They were warned through conscience, intuition, and signs, but they ignored it all in pursuit of a false sense of victory. And now the darkness they sought to bury you with sits upon their chest night after night, refusing to relent. 10, they thought your meekness meant powerlessness. Now they're terrified of your glow-up. They mistook your silence for weakness and your humility for fear. Your ability to walk away from conflict, maintain composure in chaos, and refrain from defending yourself against lies led them to believe you lacked power. They assumed you were fragile, frightened, and defeated. But they never grasped that your silence was not surrender, but strategy. You were conserving your energy not because you were losing, but because you were evolving. While they were consumed with attempting to destroy your reputation, you were quietly rebuilding your life day by day, healing wounds they believed to be irreparable, processing pain they expected would leave you embittered, and discovering joy in places they prayed would break you. So there you have it, beloved. The universe has a way of balancing the scales, doesn't it? The core message here isn't about gloating or reveling in someone else's misfortune. It's a powerful reminder that our actions have consequences, and that integrity, even in the face of adversity, is its own protection. It's about understanding that darkness ultimately consumes itself, and that light, no matter how dimmed, will always find a way to shine again. It's about trusting that you are always protected, even when it feels like the world is against you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever witnessed something similar? What lessons have you learned about karma and resilience? Please share your stories or questions in the comments below. Let's start a meaningful conversation. And if this resonated with you, if you found some comfort or a new perspective, please hit that subscribe button. That way you won't miss out on future reflections and discussions. Sending you all so much love and light, love and light, love and light, love and light.